And I studied it a little bit and then wrote this poem based off of that. Here we go. In this week's Torah portion, we hear the culmination of a story long set in motion. 22 years prior, Joseph was sold. He was the prized child of Jacob, who had since grown old. His brothers had become jealous because he got all the attention. And as their jealousy grew stronger, they brought the unmentionable to mention. They had sold him to a slave trader who was traveling down to Egypt land. But in the meantime, Joseph had a rise in power and now was the second in command. He had taken one of his younger brothers into his custody as a test, and thus had a private audience where they begged him and wept. And so he ordered all of his guards to leave them alone. And he revealed to them the truth and asked them about his home. He said, "My name is Joseph. I am your brother, and I have survived. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" And they fell to their knees and begged him to forgive them for what they had done. But he smiled softly and said, "You were not the one. God has a plan beyond what we can see. You merely followed it, so please come up off your knees." So they journeyed back to their father Jacob and told him that his son still lived. And Joseph, with his heart of gold, continued to forgive. And as I reflect upon this story, I am filled with wonder and awe. How can Joseph forgive his brothers after all he'd been through thus far? How could he forgive them for selling him to be a slave, for taking away his home, forcing him to disengage? He spent 22 years alone and forgotten. Yet in the moment of truth, he did the uncommon, and he welcomed his brothers and shared his riches, giving them each land, fulfilling all of their wishes. And I ask myself, if I were put in this position, could I forgive those who brought about such division? Could I emulate Joseph and wipe away my brother's tears? Forgive them wholeheartedly, allaying their fears? I do not know if I could, but I know this gives me much to ponder. So I thank Joseph for filling me with this wonder. And I'll ask myself in earnest, each and every day, how can I be more like Joseph, as he so boldly forgave? And I'll ask each and every one of you, how can you forgive and let go? How can you welcome more into your soul? Perhaps for this next week, we can think and meditate. How can we be more like Joseph? A little more each day. Thank you.
Wow.